Welcome to Speaking in Spoons with your host, Christina Brookman.
Hi, I'm Christina Brookman, your host with Speaking in Spoons. And today we have Carol Driscoll from Disability Law Center of Virginia with us to speak about assisted living and nursing homes. Hi, Carol. Thank you so much for being with us. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning. It's a pleasure.
So Carol, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your relation to this topic of nursing homes and assisted living care facilities?
Sure. I have a very interesting past. Um, I got, when I got my master's degree in health services administration, I had wanted to be the administrator of a psychiatric hospital. But when I got into the program, found out I was being trained more to be a nursing home administrator. And when I finished with my degree, I worked in some hospitals, and then I did work for a while in the nursing home industry, first as an administrator in training, then as an administrator, and then also worked at a facility here in Virginia. I've done a bunch of different things, but my last job before coming to the Disability Law Center of Virginia is I was a long-term care advocate, a long-term care ombudsman. And an ombudsman works in Virginia at an area agency on aging, and we go into nursing homes and assisted livings. We are there as a resident advocate. We do education. We help with complaints and that type of thing. So I really was in the nursing homes and hearing what the issues were. Finally, my mother is in an assisted living. She has dementia. So I also have that experience as a family, as a family member.
That's an um that's sorry, I'm having trouble this morning, but that's I think you're just bringing a world of vast experience to us to share. And like we've discussed earlier, this is an important topic for people to plan for their loved ones, for themselves, of all ages, as you said,
Mhm.
like, with disability. Disability comes at all ages. There are young people needing to go into these facilities. Could you tell us, I guess, the main differences between assisted living and nursing homes?
Sure, and I'm going to read this. Um,
Okay.
a nursing home is a facility in which the primary function is the provision on a continuing basis of nursing services and health-related services for the treatment and inpatient care of two or more related individuals. On the other hand, an assisted living facility, which is shortened to an ALF, is a non-medical residential setting that provides or coordinates personal and healthcare services, 24-hour supervision, and assistance for the care of four or more adults who are aged, infirmed, or disabled. So basically, you've got an assisted living, which can be small, four people, to very large, like a large senior community, and it's for people who don't need as much assistance. Um, and whereas with the nursing home, you need more assistance. Now, there's some technical differences. An assisted living is licensed by the Department of Social Services, whereas a nursing home is licensed by the Department of Health Office of Licensure and Certification.
Okay.
Another difference is payment. An assisted living has what's called auxiliary grant. So if you're in a nursing home and you don't have funds, you would have the nursing home paid by Medicaid. And assisted living doesn't take Medicaid. They take what's called auxiliary grant. A nursing home, if you meet the criteria, Medicare may pay, your private insurance may pay. When you spend your money down, Medicaid may pay. An assisted living, on the other hand, is typically private pay. You may be funding it through a private long-term care insurance. If you are a spouse or a veteran, you may be getting some funding through the VA for aid and attendance, but primarily it's going to be private pay. When your money runs out, if you don't qualify for auxiliary grant or the assisted living does not have an auxiliary grant beds, you are going to have to move.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
So those are the main differences. There's differences as far as the who's providing the care. In a nursing home, you're going to have CNA, certified nursing aides. You're going to have nurses. If you're receiving skilled care, you may be getting the services of a physical therapist, occupational therapist, speech therapist. In an assisted living, there may or may not be an LPN or a nurse on staff. Your medications are typically passed out by what's called a med tech.
Okay.
So there are some differences in a lot of assisted livings. If your money runs out, you may need to move, or if your care becomes such that you don't meet the criteria anymore, you may need to move. Some assisted livings will have like levels of care, where they might bump you up to a higher level of care. Other assisted livings are going to move you to a nursing home. The other thing with assisted livings is that typically there's two different kinds. There are assisted livings, but you may have ones that are geared more for older adults. And these tend to be large. There's a lot of marketing. You hear them advertised on, on TV or on the radio. They may have a memory care unit for people with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Then you have other assisted livings that tend more to people who are mentally disabled or may have a mental illness, who tend to be younger. And they can range in size from smaller ones that are very much like a home to ones that are larger in size.
Okay. Um, that's interesting because I knew about and you mentioned you were going to talk about like group homes and things like that. So that almost sounds like the group home option. Am I correct about that? Or like if it's like a house type of facility, or is that still assisted living?
If you have group homes that are typically licensed by mental health,
Okay.
but your assisted livings, like I said, you can have smaller ones
Okay.
um, that are really geared to be like a home.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they are called ALFs or assisted livings, not group homes.
Okay. What are some of the common issues that you've seen come up with assisted living and then with nursing homes? Are they, yeah, what are, I guess, the common issues
Goodness.
or the most consistent issues that you've
Yeah.
seen
One
arise?
one of the issues, especially with assisted living, is how am I going to pay for it?
Okay.
If I don't qualify for auxiliary grant and I don't have a lot of money, it's really difficult to find an assisted living that is affordable. Now, I was in Southwest Virginia during the summer, and there were some very nice assisted livings out there that were not as expensive. But in this area, um, an assisted living, the big glamorous ones, um, they're running about $6,000 a month. I was in
Wow.
Northern Virginia 2 weeks ago. They're running $10,000 a month. Most of us don't have that kind of money.
No.
So if you don't have that kind of money and you don't qualify for auxiliary grant, it's really difficult to find one that you're going to be able to afford. I always tell people, you know, call some of the places, see if they'll work with you. Um, Another issue that I see with an assisted living, and we're going through this personally right now with my mom, is that what happens when the money runs out? You know, you've been in this assisted living for maybe 10 years and you have no more money.
Yeah.
You know, where are you going to go? Um, with the nursing home, that's not as much of an issue. Typically, when you go into a nursing home, um, you have had something like that landed you in the hospital. Let's say you fell and you broke your hip. So you were in the hospital and you need some rehab. So you go to a nursing and rehabilitation center. Medicare, if you have Medicare, Medicare is going to pay for that. And then when your Medicare days run out or you no longer meet the criteria, then some people are going to go home. Some people are going to stay in the nursing home. And at that point, um, if you don't meet the criteria for Medicare to pay or a private insurance to pay, then you're going to work on going on Medicaid. And that typically means that you're going to have to spend down your money and only have $2,000 in assets. So you may have to sell your home. You may have to, liquidate different assets and that kind of thing, which you will do by paying the nursing home. And it's really important that if people have a lot of money and they're looking ahead, that they not just start giving things away, because Medicaid, when you apply for Medicaid, they have a look back period and they're going to be looking at that. So if that's something that people are concerned about, they really need to talk with an attorney. Um,
Can you put that money into a special needs fund for yourself, or is that
I,
completely different?
you may be able to. I'm not,
Okay.
I don't know enough about that. So someone
Okay.
really, I think, needs to talk with an attorney, because you don't want to mess it up. You don't want to,
Right.
let's say, okay, well, I'm going to give my house to my daughter, and then find out you can't qualify for Medicaid. Um, Another issue that I see that, gosh, when I first started working in nursing homes in the early 90s, it was an issue. It's even more of an issue now, is staffing. Just
Yeah.
about any facility, an assisted living, a nursing home, a home health agency, there's going to be an issue with staffing. And particularly because if you work in, let's talk about a nursing home, it's very, very hard work. And let's say that you're a CNA. um, a lot of times, what I'll say is that you really have to love it, because you could go to Walmart and be a greeter or work at McDonald's and maybe get more money than this job that it's physically hard. Um,
That's what's
and
so sad to me. Like it's a hard job and an important job for our community, society, and they're just not getting paid well.
yep, and so the facilities are having trouble with staffing. And, they're trying all types of things to recruit people, to retain people. And a lot of times, the majority of the care is by the CNA. And if they can go down the street for a little bit more money, a lot of times they have to do that. So staffing is an issue. Um, and it's been an issue for a long time. I don't know that it's going to get better anytime soon. And a lot of the issues and stuff that I have seen have come from um, a staffing shortage. One of the things the industry did was they started going with agency. Agency is where you hire a company, and they are sending their staff in. Sometimes you may have staff that are going to come back in. A lot of times they aren't. They just may be there short term. Sometimes the people are just wonderful, but sometimes they don't have that same commitment. So you don't have that consistency. They don't know the residents as well. And so that can be an issue as
And
well.
consistency is so important in many of these care, like, particularly with dementia, Alzheimer's patients, like the familiarity of who's around them and all of that.
And I'll give an example personally, if that's okay. My mother,
Absolutely.
like I said, she's been in her assisted living, I'm thinking it's 10 years. And she started in like a kind of an apartment and then went to a memory care unit. And um, she is one who she hides things. So she likes to hide her teeth. She likes to hide her glasses. Um, so the protocol has been at night, they're supposed to get her teeth and her glasses so she can't hide them. Well, her teeth went missing. And what one of the aides told me was they had staff in who did not know and were assuming did not get her teeth, and so she hid them. And my mother hides things really well. She also, if you come in and start looking through things in the room, she wants to know what you're doing. What are you looking for? Why are you doing that? So you can only look for things she hides when she's not in the room.
Right.
So she has no teeth. And well, it's a plate. And and that's because staff did not know um what her um what her issue was, that she likes to hide things. And that's just really why it's so important to have that consistency.
Yeah. Um, she sounds fun. Your mom, like a
My
trip.
my mother is she is. She used to be, she was a person who was very much before her time. Um, like to do lots of things. She used to be out and about in the assisted living. She would be dancing, and I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, is your mother Rosemary? I saw her dancing." Or your mother talked to us about when she worked at Campbell Soup Company. And I mean,
Yeah.
she's just a person who she's a pleasure. But she also is very ornery. So
Yeah.
she does not want to do what does not want to do.
Yeah. Um, I wanted to ask if it's this way in Virginia. My mom's aunt, who was in Charleston, um, had did have money and had saved money, and got a very nice I think assisted living like apartment, like you were talking
Mhm.
about with your mom. And she had all of her things, like not all of her things, but a lot of her things from her life that meant a lot to her. And then she had a stroke and had to be moved to a memory care, like a specialized unit. And her family was told they had to pack up her stuff and get it all out of the apartment. And she was so upset because she thought she'd be able to come back to that apartment. And I think that was a lot of her health decline. She kind of gave up at that point. So I wish that it had been made clear to her and the family that that's kind of the process. And I was just wondering if that's something that happens in Virginia as well, that you're not able, like, I know I have a caretaker, so I can have a caretaker in my home and be surrounded around my things, which helps with my mood. Is it that way at nursing home and assisted living here that you have to then, if you have to go to memory care, it's a smaller unit and you have to get rid of your stuff essentially?
Yeah, the same thing, happened with my mom. We moved her up here from Delaware, so it was downsizing from her house. So, we moved her into it was like a 2-bedroom assisted living. So there were a lot of things she couldn't take. Then when she went to her first memory care room, it's much smaller. So there was a lot of stuff that couldn't go. Now, fortunately, um, we were able to move most of her furniture, but no, I mean, she went from having maybe 3 closets for clothing to 2 smaller closets. So yeah, I mean, it is hard because there's not as much space. Most assisted livings will let you bring your furniture, will want you to have things, bring as many personal items as possible. Some assisted livings, though, they provide the furniture. In a
Okay.
nursing home, typically the nursing home is going to provide the furniture. And if you want to, you might be able to bring like a favorite recliner, but typically you wouldn't bring your dresser or that type of thing. You're going to be encouraged to bring things to personalize your room, but you're going to have, unless you have a private room, you're going to have a semi-private, and you're not going to have a lot of space. And I've worked with several residents at nursing homes where it was an issue. They had lots and lots of things, and sometimes those things were put in storage. Sometimes they were told, someone has to come get them. When things were put in storage, then there were issues with them, disappearing or getting damaged or whatever. And yeah, I mean, it's really traumatic.
Yeah.
You're not only having to leave your home to go into I mean, they try to make it as home-like as possible, but it's still, when it comes down to it, it's a facility, it's an institution, so not only is there the trauma of making that transition, but then having to give things up, having to decide, what am I going to take? What am I going to get rid of? And then do you even have someone who can help with, all of that? It really is
Yeah.
difficult.
And and usually, like you said, most places, especially with Medicaid, you're gonna have a roommate, correct? In
Yes.
assisted living, or was it always that way? Because I thought like years ago when I was looking at stuff for my grandmother, it wasn't, they weren't, the rooms weren't as small. Or they didn't seem to be because they weren't partnered up. But then when she ended up going into a facility, it was doubled up. And then when I was looking at stuff for myself, it was like that, at least with Medicaid. Is it like that with private pay?
Okay, now when you have a nursing home, typically you're going to have, if Medicaid is the payer source, typically you're going to have a roommate. Now, if there's a medical reason that you need a private room, you may have a private room. Sometimes the family will pay what the difference is. So someone is on Medicaid and they have a private room.
Okay.
And it depends on the nursing home. There's some nursing homes that the rooms are much bigger. There's some nursing homes, the rooms are smaller than when you have an assisted living. Remember, Medicaid does not pay for an assisted living in
Right.
Virginia. And so in that case, it's going to depend. If it's auxiliary grant, then typically you're going to have a roommate. If it's
Okay.
private pay, then it's going to depend, can you afford to pay for a private room, or do you need to save costs by having um, a roommate?
And what are the typical qualifications, do you know, for an auxiliary grant? Is
I'm not that I just know that limited money, I'm not sure what the income
okay.
is. Um,
Um,
one of the things I wanted to bring up is that actually there are a couple things. You've got nursing homes and you've got assisted livings. There are some other options that people may not know about if they want to stay in their home. Now, sometimes it's not an option to stay in your home. Sometimes it's not an option to go live with your family. Um, but to stay in your home, um, if you have Medicaid, you may qualify to have someone come in. Typically, it's not going to be 24/7. Um, and if you don't have Medicaid, you're going to have to pay, and it's it can be very expensive if you go through an agency. One of the downfalls is that if you're using a staffing agency, or they're they're going through staffing shortages as well. So there may not be the staff available to meet your needs, or they may some days not show up. And
that's what I ran into.
there can be a
Yeah.
perfectly good reason for that. Um, and another thing is that there are adult daycare centers, and this is where someone can go during the day. Let's say you are living at home by yourself, or let's say you're living with family and they work. You go there during the day, and you get your meals. If you get your medication, there's usually activities, that type of thing. Um, if you have Medicaid, that can pay, you can use that, or that you can have private pay. And then there's also a program called PACE, Personalized All-Inclusive Care for the Elderly. And that is something where you in the Richmond area, I think it's Innovage is the one who provides it. They become like your insurance. They are going to possibly pick you up. You may see in the Richmond area, they're green and white vans. Um, they're going to pick you up. You might go to a day health center. If you need doctor, they're going to take care of that. They're going to provide all your health care needs. There have been people in nursing homes who do have PACE, but that is another option. I think you have to be over the age of 60 for that, though.
Okay.
Um, Another thing I just wanted to point out is that as far as, if you're planning ahead, you're looking ahead, one of the things I think is really important is that you have an advanced medical directive. This is where you can say, if I'm not able to make decisions, this is who I want to make decisions for me. It's especially important if you want your agent, the person you've said, I want to make my decisions, is not a family member. If you have a health issue and you're not able to share your wishes, or you become incapacitated, they're going to talk to your family. But if you don't have family, that's why it's important to have an advance directive. I have one. I had gotten sick, and my mother couldn't, and my father both couldn't make decisions for me. I was going through a separation. My children were too young. Um, so they were having to call my brother, who's out of state. Um, and the doctor had said, look, next time you come in the hospital, you need to have an advance directive. And so I have one, and two of my friends are my agents. So it's really important to do that. Also, when you have capacity, I think it's very important to do a power of attorney for finances. Now, one of the downfalls is that it's not supposed to go into effect until you're incapacitated, but there all are cases where someone you've trusted with your money can exploit you financially. But it's really important, I think, to have that, because if the time comes and you can't make those decisions, you need someone to make those decisions for you. Let's say you need to go into a nursing home and you need to sell the house and you need to get all the banking information. You're going to need a power of attorney to do that. I would recommend personally that you go to an attorney or go to someone who knows what they're doing, rather than getting a form off the internet, because if it's not the correct form, when the time comes, if you don't have capacity to execute that document, you're kind of going to be stuck. You don't want to have to go to the route of needing a guardianship. Also, if you're able, and this is not everyone can do this, look into long-term care insurance. This is something where um, the long-term care insurance, you are going to pay privately for it. It can be used to help pay for an assisted living. It can be used to help pay for care in the home. Um, it it may seem costly, but in the long run, it is probably going to be less per year than a month in, let's say, an assisted living. There can be medical criteria and that type of thing, but if you're able to qualify and afford it, that's something to look into.
Absolutely. And like that's something I'm doing now. And I think it's um important at any age, because you never know when something's going to happen to you and you're going to become incapacitated, especially if you have a disability or a chronic illness. And you want to make sure that people you trust are going to be there, able to speak for you when you're in that situation. And so, for those listening or watching, if you have loved ones that, like your parents, talk to them about these things, help them with planning now. If you have children that are disabled or friends that are disabled, or with chronic illnesses, talk with them, because these things are so important, because the people that are suffering the most often, it happens because there aren't those documents in place and they can't get the help that they need. Would you say there's a difference in the quality of, like, like private pay facilities and Medicaid facilities, or the auxiliary grant facilities?
As far as with the nursing home, most people in a nursing home, either Medicare is going to pay initially, and then when the skilled care need ends, most people in the nursing home are going to be on Medicaid.
Medicaid.
Um,
Okay.
Very few people. I think I've met one or two people in 9 years who were not on Medicaid in a nursing home. So I mean that payment status doesn't really make a difference. It used to be years ago that you had like part of the nursing home was, you know, Medicaid and part wasn't, and the Medicaid part was not as nice as the other part. Now they're all, unless it's the skilled unit where you're there for Medicare, um, you're not going to be able to tell. With assisted living, yeah, there is a big difference. Like I said, the communities that are geared more towards seniors that you hear advertised that are typically private pay, they are going to be more glamorous, have you know, more activities than an assisted living that is funded primarily with people who are on auxiliary grant, because the auxiliary grant rate is, I I'm thinking it's about 1,700 a month. Compare that to someone who's in a private pay assisted living paying $6,000 a month. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a big
there's a big
there's a big
difference.
difference. Now, at the Disability Law Center of Virginia, we've been doing this project, where we've been going throughout Virginia visiting assisted livings. And our criteria was that you had to accept auxiliary grant. Now, there are some of the big senior communities that are primarily private pay, but may have maybe 2 to 5 auxiliary grant beds. But the other facilities or homes that have auxiliary grant, they really they vary tremendously. I've visited ones that it's very much like a home. They're a little bit smaller. It might be all auxiliary grant funded, and it's very home-like. You can tell that the staff and the residents care about each other. They're home cooking meals. There are some others that are larger, and for people who are disabled, not necessarily older. And there is a lot of funding with auxiliary grant, and there's some that I probably wouldn't put my mother in. There are others that I would feel comfortable putting my mother in. So I mean, it really varies. And what people need to do is when they're looking for a placement for themselves or for family, you need to go and visit. You need to take a tour. You need to see, you know, what you think. Does it look clean? You know, are there odors? Do you see any bugs? How are the staff interacting with and with the residents? I went to a place during the summer in Southwest Virginia, and building wise, it wasn't a pretty building, but you could tell that the staff generally cared about the residents. And I had a resident tell me that she had moved there because she heard the staff were so caring. Like I said, I mean, it wasn't the furniture wasn't brand new and stuff, but it depends what you're looking for.
relationship, I think, with the staff can be so important too. You know, thank you so much, Carol. Is there anything that any other things you would like to say before we sign off today?
I have one thought, and this is personal opinion. This is not professional.
Sure.
Um, and I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but as people my age are getting older, I think we need to stop telling our children, please don't put me in a nursing home. I can't tell you how many families I've met with that I mean, going into a nursing home as a resident, putting your family member in a nursing home as a family member, it's traumatic enough. But I've heard from families who've said, I promised my mom I would never put her in a nursing home, and now I'm having to do this. And they're racked with guilt and they don't have an option. You know, they either can't care for mom at home or it's not safe for mom to be at home. Um, but that guilt is just, phenomenal. And a lot of times they're not putting someone in a facility and they're keeping them at home because of that promise when it's really not safe for anybody. So that's just like I said, as we're aging, that's just my personal opinion.
I think that's great advice because, we do harbor a lot of guilt for things like that. Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us today and sharing with us your expertise, both professional and personal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is your host, Christina Brookman, back for the after party. And we have with us special guest host, JC, who was on with us on an earlier episode last month with his personal story about his benign brain tumor. But this time we're going to be talking about what Carol was talking about with nursing homes and assisted living and all of those things. JC, did you have any thoughts about the interview?
Well, I thought it was very in depth. I found out a lot more than I thought I knew, and I didn't think I knew a lot, but I knew somewhat. No, I didn't. Nope.
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all, apparently. The most I have ever done in a nursing home was gosh. I think I was 14, and in chorus, we went to a nursing home to sing Christmas carols. So that's about my extent of knowledge of nursing homes.
I think that's a lot of people's until it like happens
Until it
to you.
affects them. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I've been in a lot in the past couple years. Because my granny was in one, and then my grandmother very briefly, until she was in for like a week until my aunt and cousin literally broke her out in her wheelchair to take her to the ER. And she wasn't allowed to leave that way, but they like looked for the cameras and everything and stole her out on a wheelchair and took her to the ER, she was really excited. She's like, thinking it's the Wild West and she's gangsta and all this stuff. But
it sounds pretty gangsta.
it was. She ended up in the hospital. She was actually ended up having to be put on hospice. This, was not a good facility, and they weren't watching out for her, and it was her time. But yeah.
Sorry to hear that. I mean, see, whenever I hear nursing home, I automatically think of Happy Gilmore and just Ben Stiller just telling some old lady, you will shut up, or I will shut you up. Something like that. Now your hands are gonna hurt. So I'm glad it's not always that bad.
Yeah, I think it just depends. You really, like she said, have to do your research. And I thought it was a lot of places that I thought were nursing homes are actually assisted living that have a memory care. So like that whole like difference. And we are located in Virginia, so that's why she was talking a lot about the programs in Virginia, but every state will have programs like that. Although what I have typically found and what she was talking about, most like of those daycare options and things like that, or like the everything is geared towards elderly or people with developmental disabilities. It's very difficult as a younger person with a physical disability to have care that is where you're not like people have been, they've tried to suggest me going to a daycare, and I was like, I really don't want to spend all day with people that are mostly older than me or mostly at a different capacity than me developmentally. I feel like that would be very depressing for me. And
I
you know,
completely agree. I mean, there's not just, assisted living places, but I've generally found, like, at least in my neighborhood, there's a lot of places for older people to go.
yeah,
It's like, hey, we got bingo if you're over 65 and
yeah.
great. I'm like, well, where do the 40-year-olds go to hang out these days? So
We can also be poor.
I
We can
know
also
I don't
be,
drink, so
yeah.
I don't hang out at bars.
But
So
like transportation, I know we talked a lot about that in your episode. I mean, that's a huge issue with me and all of the hosts.
well, let me
And
ask you this then. Do
huh,
you have a parking pass for somebody to drive you?
I did. And then it lapsed, and I've just had so much going on medically. I haven't gotten a new one. Um,
You could
and
go around getting one of those.
oh, your doctor, your primary care will write you if you have a disability. The parking pass is for you, but you give it to whoever is driving you.
Right.
Yeah. So your primary care your neurologist could do that for you.
Huh. Interesting.
But then,
Interesting.
but you have to meet certain criteria, which I'm sure you would, particularly with seizures.
Yeah.
It just depends. Um, and a lot of people, that's why a lot of people get upset with people with those signs when they look like you or I,
Right. When you don't have a physical disability that
yeah,
impedes you from driving.
yeah, but they don't understand. Well, like if you can see now, I'm getting like red in the face. I don't regulate my body temperature. So like particularly, well, like 75 is too hot for me. I have ice caps, ice vests, all these crazy things. It'll trigger my migraines. I go into paralysis. So like we have to park close. And we have to like, yeah, but people will like look at me and stare at me like,
No, you
unless
need a stink eye.
exactly, unless I'm using a mobility device. Or like when I'm looking at, the funniest thing is when I'm calling a lot of these facilities for myself, or like agencies for home health care, they always think they're shocked that they're talking to me. They think I'm calling for a parent or something like that, but it's for me. And they like, I had the agency for my current healthcare aid told her if like I need more hours because I have respite hours like to go over with. And if I, if it looks like I need more hours, talk to my mother, and my mother calls the agency. And I heard that and I was like, what? Um, and so I called the agency, and she was like, oh yes, yes. And I was like, ma'am, first of all, I have in my paperwork that you're not supposed to be talking to my mother about any of my medical history.
Ooh, that's some HIPAA
So that's a
complaint right
violation of
there.
HIPAA. I
Right.
love my mother. We have a great relationship. She's, it's just, she's, gets some things confused. So I don't want to overwhelm her with all of that stuff. And so I have a very close friend as my the power of attorney that she was talking about, in case anything happens. And I said, that's your contact. And she opened the file and she was like, oh, yes, I'm sorry. So then, Miss so-and-so would have to call in. And I was like, no, I'm a perfectly sound mind. And she's like, well, this is just the way it works, as if I haven't, like, talking to me like a kid, like I haven't been doing this for 10 years. And I was like, I was like, have I gone crazy? Have they changed she's like, talk to your social worker. I was like, first, that I love, everybody just assumes when you get disability, you get a social worker. Like, you get your card and you get a contact for a social worker. That does not happen.
No.
If you
Nope.
need food stamps, you have to apply. And even when you have food stamps, like, you have a caseworker, you don't have a social worker. They actually, when I tried to call her my social worker there, she's like, I'm not a social worker, I'm a caseworker. And I was like, I'm sorry. But yeah, they're not social workers. Like, so I called my Medicare caseworker, and I was like, have the laws changed? And she said, no, Christina, you don't have a guardianship that I'm aware of. And I was like, no. And I was like, yeah, you're of perfectly sound mind to make your own medical decisions. So if you would like more hours for your caretaker, you call the agency. And I was like, that's what I thought. So
Where do these people get off? I don't know.
I don't know, but I think a lot of it goes to kind of something what Carol was talking to. There is just there is a hardship put on the industry.
They were saying lack of employees.
Lack of employees, and a lot of that is because of lack of pay, which can then also then you get crappy agencies, because
You get what you pay for a lot of the time.
you get what you pay for. And also, unfortunately, I think people, when they're disabled and elderly, we get taken advantage of so much because we're just so desperate for help half the time. A lot of people don't have families, or their families are overwhelmed. They're working, they have their own things to take care of, right?
Oh, believe me, I know that one. I mean, just to give you an example, listeners out there, here's a way to get messed over. I had to get my roof repaired, and I'll tell you what, I mean, the guy seemed like super nice, and then like more and more it kind of became, oh, who did I end up dealing with here?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, yeah, on me, I probably should have gotten more than one, quote.
Yeah.
But that's something like you don't always think about. You're like, especially if somebody was referred, they're like,
Right.
oh, so and so was great to me. And then it's like, well, so and so couldn't make it, but they referred somebody. I'm like, okay, so this is where that ended up. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting taken advantage of, it was a real buddy thing for a minute with the roofer.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing you a favor. And I'm like, are you? I mean,
really?
Because I mean, maybe you did something here, but then again, you totally screwed up my fence. Like, I still need to repair my fence because over the winter, they just left all the equipment leaning up against my wooden fence. And it just busted. Yeah, it was fantastic. Good times. Good times.
It's always something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, did they when you were going through like your surgeries and all that, did you ever have to go to a like a rehab facility or anything like that?
Luckily, I didn't have to do that. All my stuff was outpatient.
Okay.
But whenever my grandmother got cancer, she had somebody come in and be a caretaker for her.
Mhm.
So I know, what that aspect of it is like. Just
And
having to deal with somebody coming in and like, this is your space. And it's like, okay, not only is this person like taking care of all my needs, like my personal needs.
oh yeah,
So, is this person trustworthy? Do I have to, and you have to build a rapport with this person. And it's kind of hard to do that right off the bat whenever your caretaker is also, trying to be your BFF. And I'm like, listen, maybe don't talk to Graham that well, like while she's in the tub.
it's hard, and I think it's uncomfortable for them too because they're trying like they don't get a lot of training. I don't know how it is with each state, but in Virginia, to get your license, it's a week's worth of training. And it's you pay $300. And or they're so desperate for people now, they'll waive the $300 if you work so many hours for that agency. So even if you hate the agency and you want to quit, you can't quit because then you'll owe them a certain amount of money. So and they were also doing a lot of training via Zoom. And I was having caretakers come to me at one point, like I will go in from being able to walk to being completely incapacitated. And you need caretakers that are trained on how to lift, without hurting themselves or you, and how to like rotate you on the bed. So you don't get like bed sores
Gonna
and
get
stuff.
bed sores, yeah.
Exactly. I use a bedside commode sometimes, depending on the day. So like to be 41 and like sometimes have to have pads or a diaper or use a bedside commode, they're like all shame and humility is like gone at a point. Like my caretaker helps me shave because otherwise, like I've tried to do it myself and it's
I did.
hysterical. You did? You shave
Well,
your head? It's beautiful, darling. Beautiful.
thank you.
I want to shave my head.
Do it.
It's hot and there's so much hair.
You know what
But
though? If you're gonna shave your head, don't do it immediately. Try bangs for once. Just if you've never had bangs, try bangs. See how
I
you'll
did. I got super hot from the bangs.
get super hot from the bangs.
Yeah, because it's covering my forehead.
Uh,
So yeah,
see,
yeah.
I would just think like a little cooler, maybe
You would
shorter
think,
hair.
but I've had shorter hair. I've had
What
a
about
pick.
what about an undercut? And then we give you one huge mohawk.
Do you not see my reverse mullet growing right here?
That's pretty sweet.
Uh,
I'm just saying, we could totally mohawk that thing up. It's got to be at least 3 foot. It's gonna be
yeah,
sweet.
that would be cool. Like I've always wanted one of those warrior haircuts, like
Uh-huh.
braided mohawk it and all that stuff. So
Like
we'll
Road
see.
Warrior battle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you've inspired me. But
You also have to dye it like something crazy, like a nice hot fuchsia.
oh definitely. I rock pink. Yeah, that will also go well with the flushed
I was gonna
cheeks.
say it would go with your rosy cheeks.
And then people will take me more seriously when I call them. I'd be like, I am Brookman, warrior god.
Are you a
Hear
god?
me roar. And then they would laugh and be like, you are a Smurf on crack.
Well, if you can afford crack these days, I don't
I
know.
know.
It's a
I
seller's market anymore. Sad. Kids, don't do drugs.
no.
Adults, do whatever you want. You're an adult.
But housing, and this is something we talked about in your episode, a lot of like, so we talked assisted living, nursing homes, and then like there's also like HUD independent housing.
Mhm.
And a lot of those places like because my aunt, I'm trying to get in one myself, and that's nationwide. There is HUD,
Mm.
and it's income based. And the nice thing about independent living is it's not paid for by your insurance. So you keep your, like if you're on SSI or SSDI, a lot of my aunt didn't want to go into a facility because she was terrified of losing her monthly check, because that would go, they would
Mhm.
take that would go towards the her housing facility. She would no
Living
longer,
cost. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and then so she's like, well, how am I going to get Christmas gifts or little things for myself, and but when she's in independent, you really, then they expect people, the system expects people to have family, and have family that can provide those kind of things or provide extra care, things like that. Like she was talking about the, you know, people will call in sick and things like that. Happens all the time. And it's a lot of them are mothers. So their kid gets sick, they have to, and you don't know that till the last minute. It's a
Yeah.
legitimate reason, but there's nobody, they don't have agencies, don't have enough staff to have like on-call aides that they can send to all the places where there is a sick, an aide that is out at the last minute. So
Yeah.
then I have
Nobody's
lived
on call.
sometimes, yeah, I get the call, and if it's a good day, it's great. But if I'm like laying in my urine, I'm like, okay. Uh,
Mhm. This is
that's
why we don't have carpet.
yeah.
Wood floors only.
This is why we don't have get good beds, children. but
Don't get
but
one of the memory foams. They just you
yeah,
can't get anything out of
get the
those.
mats that go under and protect it. But this happens for everybody, like, you know, older people and other disabled people, like a lot of those, and a lot of those independent living places will have somebody there that helps you get your foods, because most of the people there are going to be 62 and above or disabled. They have a certain amount of disabled units. Um, and
Is it still 62 or is it now 65? Like,
it's still 62 right now,
okay.
at
Because
least here.
retirement now is what, 65?
It has. Did it change recently?
I think it's been 65 for a hot minute.
Okay.
I don't know for
Maybe that's a
certain.
Yankee
Now you
thing.
got me second guessing myself. But hey, either way, we're not there yet.
We're not,
Maybe,
no.
yeah, maybe we'll have Social Security when we get that age, but
Oh God.
fingers crossed.
Well, and isn't that scary? Like people are living longer and things like that. So you've got all those years on retirement. And if you're not planning early, and medical issues, like
Yeah,
they
who
can
knows? Like,
happen. You never know when something's gonna happen.
exactly. I mean, you're 20 years old, you're working for, something fun, you're in college still. Something happens to you, you have nothing planned. You didn't, account
Yeah.
for this, and you just happen to be right past the age that you can be, at least for us back in the day, once you were past 18, you were no longer able to be covered under your
Yeah.
parents' insurance. Now it's 26,
Yeah.
which good for them.
I
But
think that's incredible, but
then again, the parents have to have insurance too. So
very true. And I know people that have actually, like, you continue marriages and things like that for a while, or like you take a while to figure things out because you're trying to make sure that children that you love and care about and help raise are cared for,
yeah.
which is so admirable. But yeah, like I think of even younger children, something happens to a younger child, or parents that are born with children with disabilities, you
Mhm.
know, that is, I can't imagine choices to having, like there are places where parents sometimes do have to put their child in a care facility. because they cannot meet their care needs. And I can't even imagine having to do that, or at least a day facility. I know they do that. But then some kids also end up staying in like an apartment type setting, group setting kind of
Okay.
thing, dorm mother kind of thing.
So
Yeah.
like group living, kind of like a shared dormitory type vibe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there are also like, the one that I'm thinking of in Virginia, they have is specifically for autism, but it's for like nonverbal autism,
Mhm.
and children that need like constant care of where they're needing the occupational therapy, the physical therapy, the speech therapy, things like that. And their behavior can become dangerous, and it's not because they are violent or bad children, it's because they can't communicate their needs. So it's very, I mean, for I guess a more common example, people think back to the story of like Helen Keller, when she was blind and deaf, and
She
she's
didn't get better, but
no, but at first there was those. No, she was cured, but there was those behavioral issues because she couldn't communicate
I
what she wanted, and communication is so important.
which now I want to watch The Miracle Worker. Come on. When's the last time you saw that?
Oh my God,
On stage, probably.
I love that.
It's
I
so
was an understudy to be Helen Keller, because I was too tall, and I was actually so
you
excited.
too tall.
I know, right?
You're like what, 4'7"?
Hey, I'm 5. Well, I may have shrunk a little since they took the stuff out of my neck, but so I'm between 4'11" and 5 foot, somewhere in there.
Okay, so you're like ready for the NBA. All right.
Totally. But their Annie Sullivan was shorter, so yeah, it would have looked like I overpowered her. But that's exciting, right? Never in my life ever again.
I don't know. Could always do, puppet version. We could do an animated version. We could do whatever you want.
Now you got me dreaming.
She lives.
She lived.
Mhm. So the other thing that I did think that was kind of cool, though, that Carol touched on was just how, well, it's not cool, but it's important to know, like, just how expensive it can be. I mean,
Yes.
you take for granted, certain things in life, death, taxes, you got to pay the bills if you want to eat. But I don't spend $6,000 a month on utilities and rent,
Right.
and food and clothes. $6,000 a month is a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
these care facilities better be like, scrubbing me down every day with silk for that kind of money.
They may be, but you may not want them to be
May not want them to be what?
giving you a wash.
Well, for $6,000 a month, I'm pretty sure I get to pick who's washing me.
But
That's my care facility. Look out.
not Helga.
Hey, I don't know. I'm not here to judge Helga. She may have the softest hands in the world.
She may. But like, have you talked to your parents about things like this?
I have not, but we have started having the will discussion.
Yeah.
So, what's going to happen with the house, and like what's going to be divided up, and what's going to be like given to so and so, and that kind of thing. So, whenever your parents get up toward that age, I suppose that's when you start having that discussion. But more and more I think about it, the more I should probably have a will as well. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have anything, that you want to have taken care of or bequeathed to somebody, you kind of have to do it, or else they're just going to be fighting over it for years.
Pretty much. And
It's
like,
like a lot of like old comics and Pogs that
oh, that's gonna be worth stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, remember Pogs? Got my Slammer ready. It's a beautiful thing.
Like I really don't have stuff, but like the big thing, I don't really have stuff. No, I have my animals. And I want those taken care of. But there are some of that actually is in my not my medical. I have a special needs trust, which sounds like I have money. I have no money. But let's be real here. But the special needs trust, what it is it's a way, if you're on disability, people can leave you things without you losing your Medicaid. Yeah, because and you can only be on disability or certain things to have this kind of trust, and then the government can't like tax you on it, and you also Medicaid can't look at it and say, oh, you have too much money to have Medicaid. So if I should happen to inherit anything ever someday, which I'm more than likely not going to, people would put it in that account. But that's also scary because I have been trying for years to have these conversations with my parents, because I love them. So I have two conversations. I have what do you want for your advanced directive? Like your advanced medical, like what, if something happens to you, like, how do we take care of you? How do I know when we pull the plug? Who has that decision? Is that me? Is that another family member? Because people fight over that kind of.
I'm sure. I mean, it's
yeah,
a lot of like infighting between siblings, and then
and
you
I'm
get
an only
hobbits
child.
that show up out of nowhere,
The hobbits.
and they just want their taste of
My Smurf clan is showing up. Gargamel is gonna.
Well, that's according to your hat, your ice cap.
It is. But yeah, I mean, it causes extra stress for your children and your loved ones. And all I want is to make sure my parents are not in pain and that they're taken care of. And I worry because I am disabled. And I worry what if I am not able to do those things for them? I want to make sure they have somebody that they trust that is going to do those things. But also, I want it in writing what they want. So if that person is not doing it, I can say, hey, this is what they wanted. And I will, I just want to make sure they're taken care of. Let's not
unleash the wrath.
I will unleash the wrath and beat them with my cane.
The hammer will be brought down.
That's my Thor weapon.
Your weapon. Your mighty hammer.
Cane. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But seriously, we just want that. Like she said, the whole guilt thing about. Have your parents ever said, "Don't put me in a home"?
No.
You're so lucky.
We never had that conversation though.
Because I don't think people do.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't know. My mom's pretty spry, but that's the thing. I suppose we should have these conversations.
I mean, you were spry, and then
I am spry. What are you trying to say here?
But what am I trying? But what I'm saying is, you're a perfect example of one day fine, next day. Psh.
Yeah. Which, they have pills for that now.
They do.
Yes. We'll have that conversation another time. No. I just made it weird. That's probably where we're going to end it too, isn't it? You're going to think, oh, this is JC's sign off. Bye, boy.
That's okay. I'll just edit your whole, all of you out,
Ooh, that'll be
like a
fun.
talking head, a blog,
Oh, just
occasionally
mute me and then like put
like a Muppet.
ooh, or put subtitles underneath me and just be like, okay, this is what he actually said, folks. So,
None of what he, none of
not
what
what
you
he
don't
mouthed
believe you
there.
hear.
That
Yeah.
was nothing. Actually, he just went on a half-hour rant about how much he loves BTS. It was
Oh
sick.
yeah. Don't
So,
worry, I will definitely make you sound intelligent.
oh, bless you.
Um, but yeah, those conversations I think are very, very hard. And I'm an only child, so like it all is a lot of pressure.
It's all on you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Do you have any aunts or uncles that you can like get some assistance from?
I have they're all out of state except two aunts in state for my mother. One who's talking about moving to Florida, and the other one has multiple sclerosis herself. So a
Hmm.
lot of times we're taking care of her stuff because her children are not involved. So it's oh, it's complicated. And my dad lives in the other part of the state, but most of his sibling, he has one brother in town. He is married though, so I think, and he has started to make arrangements. I worry because he's, both him and his wife are having trouble getting up and down the stairs. And that's a big thing. People don't want to leave their homes. They get attached to the homes, but they don't have a
Oh,
conversation of is what can we do, like, and until the point where all of a sudden you can. And I was like, well, Dad, I know you don't want to be separated from your wife, so you guys need to start having that conversation. So I don't know, you both end up in assisted living together, or like, nursing home, shared room. I don't know. Like, all
wouldn't
joking
that
aside,
be a
I
bummer if
also
they were
don't want to
like,
be separated.
well, I was just gonna say, personally for me, it would be a bummer if they didn't have what you might call co-ed dorms. Come on. If you had the old and one old guy and you had to, room with another old guy, screw that. It's the future. Co-ed dorms.
You want co-ed?
Co-ed dorms for the old. That's what I'm saying.
I think when we get there, we can market that. I don't think it's there yet.
You don't
Although,
think it's there yet? I think it's been there. Old people. Look at all the people in Florida that are like over 70 that are still like partying hardcore.
well, it's hush hush. Like, it's the like, okay, you don't get to room together, so like your roommate would probably not be of the opposite sex, but yeah, you're in the same building. I mean,
Ooh,
how else are you gonna date? They all date each other. I mean, there's like one guy to like 20 women.
I gotta get old. Hell, I gotta get old real quick.
I mean,
That's
seriously,
that's like a harem. My God.
it is. That's actually why it's like the largest increase in STDs is in the elderly, in the
I was gonna say it.
that,
Dang,
but that's
it's true. I mean,
nursing homes and things like that. Yeah.
it's just one big party, at the
No,
end
it's
of the
not at
cartoon.
all.
Well, maybe at the assisted living homes.
The assisted, although they do have activities and things like that, and there are getting more people that specialize in different kind of like trying to bring things in. My cousin does.
Oh,
She used to be an occupational therapist, and
okay.
now she's in charge of like rec activities for a nursing home and is loving it. But yeah, um, good time. I think we'll end there.
Okay.
Recreational activities on at the nursing homes.
Hey,
Thank
Peapod and Nana need some loving too.
Yes. Well, thank you, JC, for joining us this week, and we look forward to having you on our episode coming up on the 30th. We'll be talking with Eric, who has multiple sclerosis and narcolepsy. So stay tuned for that information and save your spoons.
Bye.
you want to contact us, please send a DM or email to speakinginspoons@gmail.com with any stories you have or would like to interview with us on any of our upcoming topics. And check out our website for all of our upcoming episodes and what's happening in the Speaking Spoons community at www.speakinginspoons.com. Thank you for listening to Speaking in Spoons and have a great day.